All right, music fans, welcome back. Harmless Dave here, talking about real music in real time for real people just like you, just like me. So, I wanted to discuss the Eric Clapton Part 2 video, the interview that I did, the second part, which was quite a bit longer than the first part. I think it clocked in at like 38 minutes. And Eric and I probably could have gone longer than that, but I'm thinking to myself, I'm talking to Eric Clapton, and I'm sure he's probably getting tired of talking to me. Uh, and I just literally, I don't want to burden the guy. I don't want to keep him longer than he needs to be, but I think we could have gone for a bit longer. And I tried to stay in between those lines, where we're talking more about music than politics or um, medicine. I don't know. It's not really medicine, but anyway. Um, and I asked some interesting questions, I thought, to keep him on that. And I'm not praising myself. I'm just saying uh, the question about the Beatles, would he have taken the gig? Would he have considered the gig? And he said yes, but in deference to George, he couldn't do it, right? Um, and we were talking about the Beatles documentary where George ends up walking out, and um, a lot of people have made that into something maybe more than it was based on the feedback that I got on my super hot take that I did after I watched it. Um, but I thought it was an interesting question. We also talked about uh, The Heart of a Child, which is Eric's latest single. And we kind of finished up from part one, and we really did a deep dive into the lyrics, the meaning of the song, the idea that depression and suicide and the world around us right now, which again, apparently psychology is no longer something that you can cite. You can't use that particular science. And I find it troubling that certain publications think, hey, it's a shiny new theory. A shiny new theory. Okay. Tell somebody who has PTSD that it's a shiny new theory, that conditioning and big time life events and day after day in that fear zone. And it's a different kind of fear zone. It's certainly a different kind of fear zone, but it's still fear. And you imagine the heart of a child who is more fragile than these adults that we send into no-win situations. And I think it's relevant. And for these publications just to find ways to impugn Eric Clapton's character or to think that he's from Crazy Town, right? Because he watched a video and it says, hey, by 2030, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And this is conditioning. This is preparing you for something, right? And telling you and convincing you it's for the greater good. We have to save the planet. You have to reduce everything. You can't eat meat. You can't, drive your car. And these are all things that they've been talking about now for decades. And Americans drive large pickup trucks. I see them every day. I think, what was it? The Ford F-150 was the number one selling truck. I don't know if it still is. I think it was number one selling vehicle. And that's with all the other smaller cars and the Prius, the fuel efficient cars. I don't even know if do they make the Prius anybody? I think they do, but I don't know. The point is, you see so many more trucks that you're not really paying attention to all these cars that are out there. I do see a lot of Teslas out there too now, which are just incredible looking vehicles. Anyway, I digress. I've gone off on a tangent. My point is here, I put a lot of effort into keeping us on the topic of music. And most of the video has been ignored, especially compared to the first one, which is super viral. I understand why it's super viral. He said some controversial things, but quite normally, he didn't make a big grandstanding speech. He just, talked about how he didn't get the memo. And none of us got the memo. Everybody's just sitting here watching this world uh, almost dismantle itself. It's just kind of weird. And I wanted to talk about music. This is basically a music channel that has now decided to be political because I think there's too much at stake to just talk about, how many guitars somebody owns, whatever the, hey, what was your favorite Led Zeppelin album? Okay, that's interesting. It can still be part of the conversation. But if we can't attend concerts because of rules and regulations, and people are fearful to go to those concerts, even with all the new regulations, right? And all the mandates and dictates, people still feel desperate and alone and isolated. And music was once this outlet where you could escape for a couple of hours and, get some culture. It's like food, you can't get the food anymore. And hey, it's online now, they're just going to do a lockdown session. How many damn lockdown sessions do I want to watch? Not many. There were a few of them that were pretty good, but I'd like to go see a show in person. Eric Clapton talked about how he needs to play, he needs to feed off the audience. And it's good for your soul. It's good for an artist to know that there are people there live that are reacting to what you're doing, and that energy you get back from them. I don't know how you replace that with sitting in a room and pretending that, there are a bunch of people out there. It's not the same. And it's like virtual learning, right? It's not the same as in school learning. It's very simple to make these associations. The media, of course, would rather focus on what they believe to be craziness, whether it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr., whether it's Eric Clapton, whether it's Joe Rogan. There are just a number of names now that, they're talking. Well, let's get our staff writers out to debunk, discredit, make fun of, say mean things about, connect all their history. Basically, everybody gets doxxed, right, to some degree, who doesn't follow the narrative. All for the good of humanity, right? All to save the planet, all to save humanity from themselves. This is what they believe. And I think that's important. Because I gave the music business here a little boost of information on the second video, and nobody decided to write, hey, Eric Clapton wouldn't have joined. I thought that was a big question. I thought that was something that would go a little viral, and it went nowhere. So maybe someone will pick up on it later. It doesn't really matter to me. As far as future interviews, yeah, I'll do them. I'm certainly looking to do more of them, but you come on here, it's going to be a conversation. It's not going to be just your typical questions. Oftentimes when I watch other people interviewing, like, I'll give a good example. Steve Perry. Steve Perry comes out of hiding, right? And nobody asks him, so what's the big issue that broke Journey up? Was it just you wanting to leave because you came back and nobody asked that question? It was just celebrating, unless he told them not to. But in a couple of instances, I remember Rolling Stone, of all places, tried to challenge some of that. And I think there was a publication in the UK that struck a nerve, and Steve went off a little bit. And that, to me, is what you want to hear. You want to hear the artist responding. You want to hear some new information. You don't want to hear the sky is blue every time you do an interview. And that's kind of what people do. So, and I'm no expert. My philosophy is set them up and let the person talk and try not to get in their way. And when they're done, then get in there again and say something else to try to get them to talk some more, because nobody wants to interview me. I want to interview them. You know what I mean? Nobody wants to hear me talk, because I do that anyway. the standalone videos is what got me started here. And you can go back and watch, lots of those. So in any event, I just find it kind of interesting that the music part of this was so underreported versus the so-called controversial part about psychology, that psychology no longer exists. So we can just cross that off. Maybe they should just outlaw psychology and not have it in college, and just all those guys with practices, ladies and guys who do counseling and so forth. Maybe they should just close up shop, because there is no psychology. It's only just what we tell you to think, and that's it. Isn't it great? You don't have to know anything.